qui vient de parler au nom de l'Union européenne, de l'Autriche et de la Suède. Je donne la parole au représentant de l'Afghanistan.
In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. Mr. President, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, allow me to begin by expressing our warm felicitations to the delegation of the beautiful island state of Palau for their joining to this world family. We wish them further progress and prosperity. At the beginning of consideration on this agenda sub-item 37E, namely emergency international assistance for peace, normalcy, and reconstruction of war-stricken Afghanistan, I would like to convey the gratitude of the people and the Islamic State to His Excellency Boutros Ghali, Secretary General of the United Nations, for his continued efforts and a strong interest in support of peace for Afghanistan. In these tragic and grave moments of our life, every emphatic and sincere help to end the present crisis in our country would remain as a pleasant memory in the mind of today's and coming generations of Afghanistan, as would live miserably of those trying to take advantage of our problems for their political purposes. The decision taken by His Excellency the United Nations Secretary General in accordance with Resolution A/48/208 of last United Nations General Assembly to dispatch to Afghanistan a special mission is considered by Afghans as an important development with regard to international community's involvement and assistance for the complete restoration of peace and stability in their country. The appointment of a skillful diplomat, an excellent practitionist, and a sincere personality such as His Excellency Ambassador Mahmoud Misturi of the brotherly country of Tunisia to lead this special mission was an excellent choice. Mr. President, recognition and identification of multidimensional issues of Afghanistan as a complex, intermingled society with specific characteristics, sometimes associated with many recondite angles, is no doubt an easy task. However, it is gratifying to see the special mission in its highly challenging task has achieved considerable success. The people and the Islamic State of Afghanistan, mindful of the fact that the United Nations as a source of common hope for peace, seeking no particular interest and thus dependable to all, decided to demand the United Nations support in expediting and strengthening our national efforts aimed at ending the crisis and military confrontations in the country and the return of peace, normalcy, and reconstruction. We are pleased to see that the special mission, in a series of its expeditions, performing mediatory efforts, has won the sense of gratitude of our nation and the Islamic State of Afghanistan, marked by lending an auspicious trust to the organization. Mr. President, Afghanistan, due to its particular strategic location, standing as the crossroad of the interests of the world powers, has been exposed to several massive invasions in the course of its history, most of the time associated with extremely devastating consequences. From the aggression of Alexander the Great in the 4th century BC, through subsequent emergence of Genghis Khan in the 13th century, the British colonial invasion from the subcontinent in the 19th century, to the late invasion of the former Soviet Union in the last decade that continued for 14 devastating years. All along, these invaders faced vigorous resistance. To diminish the resistance, they had to weaken the national unity. And to achieve this objective, the very policy of divide and rule and estrangement among different segments of the population have been used through provoking ethnic, linguistic, and religious sentiments. To nullify these schemes and respond to national crisis, our nation has resorted to our traditional measures of peaceful dialogue, discussions, gatherings of Islamic scholars and elders, as well as convening of jirga, or councils, as methods typical to the Afghan society. The question is, why didn't this time Afghanistan encounter such a tragedy? Why this time Afghans confronted each other? The answer to these questions can be found in the following factors. Firstly, the former Soviet Union determined to expand its empire across Afghanistan towards war waters, realizing the uncompromising opposition of the Afghans to atheism and foreign aggression, resorted to a plan, the first implementation of which was the destruction of all political, social, and even religious institutions, the killing and detaining of hundreds of religious scholars and tribal leaders that could lead these institutions. Therefore, structures of the kind capable of preserving the balance among the ethnicities and tribes, as well as preventing internal confrontations, were either dismantled or seriously affected and incapacitated. The establishment and creation of armed and mobilized communist groups in the name of militias, tribal groups, soldiers of revolution, self-defense groups, and mobilized youth organizations were among them. The majority of these, after the establishment of the Islamic State, went underground and engaged in terrorist, destructive, and subversive activities. The second factor behind the armed confrontations in some parts of the country rests upon the massive flow of sophisticated heavy and light weapons and ammunition during the 14 years of war. We needed to collect these arms, and instead, the interferences of some specific circles beyond our neighbors, beyond our borders, as reaffirmed in paragraph 12 of the Secretary General's report, appeared as the third factor for causing armed confrontation, contributing to the miseries. Doors of new armed depots were opened in the face of some groups inside the country who were serving for outside agendas, and Afghanistan turned into a huge warehouse of arsenal. We believe, Mr. President, if the Afghan people, right after the collapse of the communist regime and the establishment of the Islamic State, were left alone, if the hands of outsiders were not stretched in our internal affairs, surely we would have once again proved our ability to respond to the crisis. Peace would have already been returned and reconstruction efforts started. Mr. President, some erroneous observations conclude that there is a civil war in Afghanistan. Based upon the factual realities and circumstances, such an allegation is nothing but a clear misinterpretation of facts. The present crisis in the country is not a civil war, but rather and imposed local armed conflict fueled from outside. Yes, the Afghan nation is an intermingled society. However, as history recounted, this characteristic of our society has never served as a cause of conflict. On the contrary, in every national crisis and foreign invasions, the Afghan people, irrespective of their ethnicities, as members of one unified family, have formed a solid front against the enemies of their faith and liberty and successfully driven away the invaders, preserving their sovereignty, territorial integrity, liberty, and Islamic character. Let us recall the historic events of the past decade and ask ourselves if the success of our jihad in thwarting the former Soviet Union's massive invasion that continued for almost 14 long years, associated with immeasurable and unimaginable death and destruction, is not a clear proof of unity and solidarity of all segments of our society. Certainly, such an historic achievement that greatly contributed in the collapse of the former Soviet Empire and became the source of inspiration to many nations towards liberty and democracy could have not been scored without a solid and unified nationwide struggle. Mr. President, distinguished delegates, the purpose behind the above illustration and historic recounts are to justify our expectation from the world community and call upon them to keep faith in our nation and their foresightedness, to keep trust on our nation as an element of peace, friendship, and peaceful coexistence. From this rostrum, Mr. President, we assure the world community that the Afghan nation is a peaceful nation, very much willing to live in peace, understanding, and cordiality with their neighbors, and moderate in nature, considering any frame of mind, on the contrary, to be incompatible with their essence and character. War always bears ominous phenomena. Drug is one of them. The problem of drug in Afghanistan is a product of war. Yes, we are a Muslim nation, and we are proud of it. One who believes in peace and hate terror and violence. A nation who, on the basis of Quranic instructions, considers the taking of the life of an innocent human being as the greatest sin and the saving of the life a source of greatest reward. Mr. President, political wisdom and foresightedness requires for the leaders and politicians of our surroundings to envisage for the future and coexistence of their nations with the Afghans rather than looking after short-sighted political objectives. We will once again prevail. What we will be losing would be time and energy to be spent to remedy these better memories from the minds of our today and future generations pertaining to unfriendly and hostile attitude of those who are resorting to stab us from behind during this time of crisis. Mr. President, with these introductory remarks, let me now turn to the United Nations Special Mission for Afghanistan. The Islamic State of Afghanistan, as stated previously, has supported the United Nations mediatory role for bringing about a national rapprochement by putting an end to the foreign interferences, thus facilitating a political process which would fully restore peace and complete security, as well as expedite national reconstruction and rehabilitation. This support is extended on the following well-grounded reasons. Firstly, the aim of the special mission was found to be in complete harmony with the aspirations of the Afghan nation, exemplified in a number of national peace proposals and initiatives, among them the convening of the broad-based Supreme Islamic Council of Herat on July of 1994 upon the